Can you hear me? Five by five says Derpy. Good morning, everybody. Andy Barnes, good morning, brother. Congratulations to everybody who is awake and alive at 7 a.m. on the 5th of July, the day after Independence Day. I imagine we're going to have quite the replay crew today rather than the live crew because it was America's birthday and people tend to party a little hard on the 4th of July, which means that 5th of July, there's a lot of people nursing hangovers. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Wow, YouTube sent me a notification, says Texas Sheep Lady. You're incredible. Now, let's do the brief. It is the 5th of July, 2024. We're going to talk about inflation today. Have a pretty funny explainer on the inflation piece from one of the dance monkeys that I'll read to you most likely. And then we're also going to do the national intel, which you all send into intel@bearindependent.com. You guys and girls know the drill. Subscribe, ring the little bell icon, leave a comment for the YouTube algorithm, and please share the show with somebody you love. If you find value in it, share the show. The algorithm has not been our friend for 24 months maybe. And so our growth is 100% organic. And if you intend to be subscribed, please make sure that you are subscribed because YouTube unsubscribes our people literally every day. I get between 10 and 100 comments on videos every day from people who have been longtime viewers of the channel who have been unsubscribed from YouTube. Why, I don't know, but it ain't me doing it. It's them. Good morning, Frank Douglas. Now, show is brought to you by the creator of the universe, Yahweh, your Elohim, the Lord your God. If that's not something that jives with you, I mean, you're welcome here, but I don't know if you're going to like it here. I don't know if you're going to stay here for very long. Exhibit A. That says certificate of ordination on it because I am an ordained pastor. And, well, I do drink whiskey and say bad words occasionally. I also very much so read the Bible and do my best to do what it says. The show is also brought to you by the fine people over at Patreon. Link is in the description. And by this company, Refuge Medical. We make the best first aid kits on planet Earth. That's a float around and find out patch balloon response team from when those balloons were floating across the country. One of y'all sent me that patch. So thanks, man. Now, Bear Independent Brief 5 July 24. A survey from the American Farm Bureau shows that the cost of this year's Independence Day cookout has risen in price to a record high. The hypothetical meal is a cookout for 10 people. It includes cheeseburgers, chicken breasts, pork chops, not food, read Leviticus 11, potato chips, pork and beans, see Leviticus 11 again, fresh strawberries, homemade potato salad, fresh squeezed lemonade, chocolate chip cookies, and ice cream. The price quoted for this by this survey is $71.22. While the article bemoans the supposed $7.12 per guest that this cookout would pay, this number seems unbelievably low. That perception may be inversely related to the circumference of your waistline, though. $7.12 in 2024 is approximately 2 IPAs of a 6-pack that you bought at a gas station. Now, I personally think IPA is trash. I'm not an IPA guy. It's like drinking it tastes like licking cologne. Way too floral. I don't need flowers in my beer, bro. I like beer that's approximately the color of the shirt that I'm wearing. Stouts, porters, things of that nature. $7. That's approximately one half of one ribeye from the grocery store and 1/3 of one ribeye from the butcher shop. However, suspending disbelief for a moment, what is causing prices to rise so drastically? A combination of factors in addition to inflation are converging to increase grocery prices. Let's have a little look-see at supply chain impacts. Half of the $71 is specifically coming from the cost of meat in the 4th of July meal. Overall cattle inventory is at its lowest number in the last 73 years. Oh, the sun will come out tomorrow. Hi, angry ball of fire in the sky. You're like right there in my eyeballs. I think, hold on. I'm gonna have to. I don't have a production team over here in the office. Well, why are politicians' dinner plates $5,000? Days says. See, that's called a fundraiser days. The way that works is the cost per plate. It depends on where you are, but we'll just call it $100, right? And then people buy the $5,000 per plate meal because when they do, the excess, the leftover, the headroom in that is then donated to the organization that put on the fundraiser. So if you had 100 people at $5,000 a piece, that would be $500,000. Their cost per plate, if it was $100 times $100 times 100 people, that'd be 10 grand. The organization would end up netting their profit off of that. What they would keep to fund the organization would be $490,000. That's why those dinners are $5,000 a plate. And to be perfectly clear, if the politician wants to go to a $5,000 per plate dinner, I don't care, as long as they're not spending my tax dollars to do it. I don't care. I have strong opinions about what people do in their personal lives, but I don't care as long as it's not directly bothering me. But it directly bothers me if you take my taxpayer money and then go to a $5,000 per plate fundraiser for the LGBTQNOP plus apostrophe asterisk crew, or Antifa, or insert thing here, or Zelensky's fundraising dinner with my tax dollars. Not really interested. Oh, don't slurp your coffee, Bear. I hate the sound of it. You're prepping for the end of the universe and you hate the sound of coffee. You might want to harden up just a millimeter or two, sweetheart. Let's continue. Overall cattle inventory is at its lowest number in the last 73 years. There's a guy on the internet that I've been watching for about 7 years who says, move to the country, get agriculture, spin up your food production. Just saying. Improved forage and drought conditions. Due to improved forage and drought conditions, it's expected that ranchers will keep breeding stock rather than selling them off, leading to less beef in the supply chain. This is on top of a record low inventory. Some animal welfare laws in the state of California, geez Louise, went into effect this last year too, and that has also caused prices to increase. The law banned in-state sales of meat raised in a way that was non-compliant with the state's animal welfare standards. So I'm not for the abuse of animals, just so we're on the same page here. I'm also not for the abuse of individuals by the state. I'm also not for you get to tell me everything that I can and can't do in my life. It's just as simple as that. What our government has gotten to the point where they're so involved in everything that they muck up everything. Now, I think there's an argument to be made, honestly, if we're going to go full-blown laissez-faire capitalism, anarcho-capitalism, right? And somebody's selling, putrid gopher meat on the side of the road in a little stand they built out of pallets and a piece of shade cloth. I'm not buying that. I'm not interested in that. Somebody may. And the state's argument is if somebody buys that putrid gopher meat and they get sick from it, that the person selling the putrid gopher meat is liable. And there's a Torah for that. There's a command for that. You're not supposed to do harm to other people, especially knowingly do harm to other people. The Torah is about the preservation of life. But getting the state involved, what is the state going to do when somebody buys putrid gopher meat and gets sick from it? They're going to do harm to the person that sold the putrid gopher meat in the first place. And then now they have purview over all meat, which means they now get to exert influence over all meat, all food, all medicine, all labor, all commerce, all healthcare. No, I'm just going to go no on that. Now, we currently have that, but it doesn't mean that it's a good thing. Hopefully you agree, or maybe you don't. Insert coffee sip. Thank you. You're correct, Upstate 717. California banned the in-state sale of meat raised in a way that was non-compliant with the state's animal welfare standards. As an example of the impact, pork chop prices, again, read Leviticus 11. Thank you for the super chat, Scott. Pork chop prices in the state have now risen from $14.50 to almost $20 within the state and have increased 8% nationally. There's also the impact of the avian influenza, which erupted in 2022. There's good news, though. Producers have worked very diligently to fortify biosecurity and halt the spread of the highly pathogenic disease. Hatchings and bird weights have been increased intentionally to keep prices affordable, too. In other words, it could be much worse, but people are working hard to mitigate the impacts. But wait, there's more. Wheat stores are at an 8-year low. Wheat, like you make bread out of, not like you put in your pipe and smoke it. Wheat. Can we get a good morning, Brian Barnes? Does a bear slurp in the woods t-shirt? It's possible. I'll talk to my wife about it. There's like all the t-shirts and the existing swag for Bear Independent are at, drumroll please, bearindependent.com. A bunch of y'all the other morning, BT dubs, were like, Bear, were you playing the intro to Painkiller when the video loaded? No, I was just doing triplet rolls. That's it. Painkiller is different. But I digress super hard. Swag, bearindependent.com. Wheat is at an 8-year low. Should you have wheat stocked up? Yes, you should have wheat stocked up. But why? Because you don't want to get in the breadline. I am teaching a private class this morning for Responder 1 for Refuge. And we start that class with the video. If you've been to class, you know the video I'm talking about. If you haven't been to class, I'm not going to ruin it for you. But suffice it to say, there's a guy being forced to get on a bus. He doesn't get on the bus, and bad things happen to him. And it's a real video. It was filmed, I don't know, maybe a decade ago in a different part of the world. And that video sums up my entire concept on I'm not getting on the bus. I'm not getting in the breadline. Men with guns, to the best of my ability, are not going to show up and make me do anything, because not only is food weaponized, air quote food weaponized against us now because it's not food anymore, but it will absolutely be weaponized against us later in order to coerce people to do whatever the governing authority is, whatever they want us to do. And see, persuasion is when you ask somebody, sometimes nicely, sometimes not so nicely, to do something. Coercion is do this or else. Do this or else bad things will happen to you. And they will absolutely shape behavior through the availability of food, as has been done for millennia. Nick says, sick. All right. Wheat is at an 8-year low. Milk production is experiencing slow to negative growth. And even the lemons for the lemonade are expensive due to a citrus greening disease outbreak in California. Of course, there's the ever-present general inflation too. Overall, the cost of this cookout has increased 30% in only 5 years. And this little 4th of July cookout that we're talking about here. And so there's a 4th of July graphic here. And let me see if I can pull it up. It's for 10 people. 1 package of hamburger buns, 1 package of cheese, 2 pounds of ground beef, 1 pack of cookies, a half gallon of ice cream, strawberries, 1 bag of chips, 2 pounds of chicken breast. 2 pounds of chicken breast is basically what I eat in a day. Pork chops, don't eat those. Pork and beans, don't eat those. Lemonade and potato salad. And so, based upon this graphic, one of our dance monkeys just got into a math hole, which I love. And so I'll read this little explainer, this little anecdote. Would 10 people really be able to share a half gallon of ice cream, 2 pounds of hamburger meat? I ran some calculations, and the 10 individuals at this cookout would have a few strawberries each. Also, they'd have less than the half cup serving that are listed on the potato salad containers. 2 pounds of chicken breast would usually be about 3 to 4 chicken breasts, so divided among 10 people, who is eating 1/3 of a piece of chicken? Well, each person only gets about 1 cup of lemonade, so you better hope that chicken is juicy. It appears that this menu is to give the guests options, not abundance, which is why the calculated numbers seem impossibly low. Essentially, little Jimmy Rumbleguts is going to have to choose chicken or hamburger, and if he's at the end of the queue, the choice will be made for him. It seems weird to make this estimation counting on people to not actually consume each of these items or expecting actual Americans to eat less than the official serving size. There was no mention of any guests bringing children either. And this is the point where we take a quiet moment to gaze deeply into the bowels of our refrigerators and silently ponder, am I just fat? ? Sincerely, Dance Monkey. So the proposed 4th of July cookout meal is completely inaccurate as far as what people actually eat anyway. And the completely inaccurate on the low end cost of said meal has risen 30% in the last 5 years to the tune of roughly $70 to cook the meal. I don't know if you guys have bought groceries lately. $70 doesn't go very far. It's like a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, some peanut butter, a little bit of meat, like some chicken breast, maybe some red meat, a handful of other things. That's it. Thank you, World Economic Forum. Thank you, International Banking Cabal. Thank you, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. And now we'll do the national intel. I don't know if you guys saw yesterday on the 4th of July in South Padre Island, somebody was attacked by a shark because South Padre Island off, let's see, the Gulf Coast, southeast Gulf Coast of Texas. All of the Gulf Coast in Texas is on the east. It's a barrier island, and it's in the Gulf of Mexico. Not too far into the Gulf of Mexico. It's a barrier island, but there it is. Somebody done got their leg obliterated by a shark. And bravo Zulu to the people who responded. Good job, homies. Because they had one of these. Not this first aid kit. They had one of these tourniquets with them. And you can very clearly see in the picture, they got a tourniquet on the person's leg. And the reason I bring that up is that there's this, to borrow a phrase, myopic paradigm that I don't need a trauma first aid kit unless I have the threat of being shot, stabbed, blown up. That's ridiculous. What people have is what Alex Hormozy calls uninformed optimism. They don't know enough about the problem. They don't know enough about the threat to realize how woefully underprepared for the threat of existence they are. For example, the most dangerous thing we do is drive. 68 of the 125 lives saved, so more than half of the lives saved with Refuge Medical products, have been motor vehicle accidents. But yet every day, people get in their car, maybe check their mirrors, maybe don't, and just take off driving a 3 to 12,000 or 80,000 pound vehicle without thinking twice. And people die every day in motor vehicle accidents. If we really want to end the pandemic of unjustified deaths in the country, we don't need to worry about fully semi-automatic, military grade weapons, which account for a couple hundred deaths per year. We should worry about motor vehicle accidents, which account for over 100,000 deaths per year. See what I'm saying? So having something like this, how does this work? So this is the travel kit. You stick a finger in here, you pull, and then boom, first aid kit, ready to go. You'll notice a pattern here. We do this little thing where we have the outer pouch and the inner pouch. It's a bare minimum. Mount this to your chest rig, war belt, plate carrier, rucksack, whatever. You pull the lid open, grab the red handle, pull, inner pouch. Pop it open. There's all your stuff. Okay. So if you don't have a first aid kit, like a real one, not like Moana Band-Aids from Dollar General, like oh no, Susie got her leg bit off by a shark at South Padre Island. Oh no, the car wrecked. Oh no, whatever. Consider coming and seeing us, refugemedical.com. There's a promo code for free shipping if you're into that. It's promo code BearNation. If you want to pay for shipping, you don't have to use that code. If you don't want to pay for shipping, recommend using that code. Okay? Okay, Bear. Bear Independent National Intel. What's the email address? Everybody say it with me. Intel@bearindependent.com. Sales down? Vader? No. Sales aren't down. I'm just talking about first aid kits. I mean, they're not anything to be concerned about. It's the usual. Everything's seasonal, cyclical. If you've ever been in the product or the sale of a product, there's seasons for things. Like for example, our sales team, sales@refugemedical.com, works with a lot of different industries. One of the industries that we work intensely with, and we specifically made a company initiative for kits and training after Uvalde, is schools. And so like we go to NASRO, which is the National Association of School Resource Officers. We go to OCASRO, Oklahoma Association of School Resource Officers. TASRO, Texas, insert state, and then ASRO after that. We go to all these regional school resource officer things, these events, in addition to the national level, where we have given keynote speeches, where we have instructed, where we have worked with multiple different school departments, school ISDs, in order to provide quotes for equipment and training to them, or hook them up with grant writers to provide the funds for equipment and training for them. School's out right now. So school's down a little bit, but roughly the middle of August, that'll pick back up again. And I use that as just one example. What's up, 12C? Because everything's cyclical, everything's seasonal. Tactical cool guys. right now because it was 102 actual. I don't know what the heat index was. It was 102 here yesterday. So a lot fewer dirty civilians and weekend warriors are doing training right now. So their mind's not on kit. Once it starts to cool down again, it will be. So everything's seasonal, and then yeah, you're like adventure sports type people, like people that are going kayaking, four-wheeling, jeeping, hiking. Those people are buying stuff right now, but then when winter rolls around, they're not. So seasonality to it. Bear Independent bonus intel. I live in central Vermont near the border of New York. I know where that is. On June 15th in Whitehall, New York, Champlain beef went up in flames. Reports are that a box truck struck a support cable to a power pole, dropping a transformer on the facility. Unless the pole came down, so that's called a down guy, the support cable. If you broke the down guy, the pole might have come over, but the transformer just falling off the pole seems very, very unlikely, unless like they were using lag bolts from Temu to put that thing on there. This sounds like yet another attack on our food production. I also wanted to reiterate the importance of having some kind of med kit on your person at all times. Thanks, man. I recently joined the worship team at our church. As rehearsal was ending, I heard my name being yelled and blood-curdling screams. As I ran to see what happened, my children ran to me in tears and my wife was panicked. My stepmother and father are visiting from Alabama. Upon entry to the church, my stepmother missed a step and went face first into the slate floor, splitting her head open to the skull, exposing the membrane encasing the skull. I think you mean encasing the brain. She began bleeding heavily immediately. Dude, head wounds bleed like nobody's business. So you have arteries that run, veins and arteries that run up to the brain, but then you have all these just little tiny blood vessels all throughout the head, and they bleed like crazy. If you ever had a head wound or ever worked on a head wound, now this particular thing that this person's talking about, yeah, that's major trauma. That's bad juju. Elevate to a higher level of care immediately. But even minor injuries, minor head wounds, oh my gosh, there's so much blood. They just bleed, 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 bleed. She began bleeding heavily immediately. Huh? Yep, checks out. When I arrived to them and performed my OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, I realized I couldn't help. My bare min was in my van, clear at the other end of the church, but there was at least some kind of first aid kit and aid being rendered by my father and other members of the church. They prayed over her while emergency services arrived. My church is full of nurses, policemen, and firefighters, so it was the best place for an accident to occur. When I realized my service wasn't needed, I immediately tended to my children to ensure them everything was okay. Praise be to the Father, my stepmother is perfectly fine, other than an immense amount of stitches in her forehead and nose. I will be ordering the bleeding control, slick, and ankle kit ASAP so I can have something directly on me at all times. Your services and message to this community ring true repeatedly. Next time, I will most certainly be better prepared. Thank you and your team for everything you do. God bless. Amen. Praise the Most High. I'm glad your mother-in-law is okay. I'm glad it was nothing but a nasty scar. Scars heal. What's up, Palmetto? Good morning. You got to keep that thing on you, bro. You got to keep that thing on you. I'm in dad shorts today, so I don't have my ankle kit on, but I do have my slick kit. This one looks a little rough, and it looks a little rough because this is the second one we ever produced, and we T&E our stuff. I've been carrying this in my pocket for like a year and a half, and there's nothing special to it. It's just a pair of chest seals, one package of combat gauze right there. If you guys can see that, combat gauze, a set of gloves, a pressure bandage, and flat duct tape. And then in this pocket over here, dad shorts, I have a North American Rescue triangle bandage because I can do a lot with that, and a soft tee. Boom. Blowout kit in the dad shorts. Ready to go. And they just look like dad shorts. Like nobody knows, man. Nobody knows. I know. All my people know. TJ is a good teacher. Thanks, Palmetto. I was at First Form HQ. These people. 1P. A couple weekends ago for an event with Ed Milet and Andy Frizella. And it came up on many an occasion. Hey, what do you do? It's like, well, I'm the first aid kit guy that makes bad stuff happen to pedophiles. And they're like, oh, awesome. They're like, yeah, I'd love to check out your product sometime. And I was like, cool, hold on. And just pulled an ankle kit off of me and surprised a dozen people a dozen different times. They're like, whoa, you have it on you. I didn't even know. I'm like, that's the point. That's the point. Didn't even know. Overseas intel. I'm a U.S. service member and have posted before. Just completed an international trip working with allies here and some observations to note. 1, Germany. We know they are more socially liberal, but not just how far. Talking with their military, they aren't allowed to have any nationalist pride because of previous issues with fervor. Think 1930 to 1945-ish. Many folks who display anything resembling that end up fined or jailed. Additionally, their air quote conservative party that has been in the U.S. news is more liberal than the Democrats of the U.S. Wow. Additionally, many of the people there are against transgender ideology and woke policies personally, but can't say so publicly. Tom T, thanks for the super chat. Hungary is a bastion of some hope. They recently became the head of the European Parliament for the next 6 months with the slogan, Make Europe Great Again. Additionally, they openly reject the gender ideology and therefore get stripped of funding for their infrastructure or other projects. I foresee balkanization if continued down this path. 3, while life there is mostly normal, the prices of everything would shock you. We pay tax on fuel, but not 100% plus per liter. Same with coffee, tobacco, and anything else that is a vice. Water from a restaurant was $4.50. Beer was $3.50 for a half liter. Many of the nations I worked with expressed concerns over the election. While Trump was preferred on his foreign policy and hardline, many felt the trials were a sham and don't see it being allowed for him to win. One Eastern European who grew up behind the walls was exactly how Russia went after its opponents. Food. Not one for government overreach, but hear me out. Many of the goods we eat in the U.S. are banned, including such favorites as Twinkies, Mountain Dew, and Starburst. While I'm not advocating for that, it should be noted no one has digestive issues while over there, but did immediately on return. Makes you wonder why the FDA says it's okay and all of Europe disagrees. Almost all food we had was natural and had little to no preservatives. Building costs. One local I talked to had recently built a house, a very small piece of property for their kid. They built a similar house 3 years ago for approximately £125. The same house this year costs £600,000. So almost a 500% increase from 125 to 600. 4x, more than 4x easily. Thank you for writing in. Again, intel@bearindependent.com. I have asked that if you're overseas to share what you're seeing over there with us, because we only get that filtered through the news when we get it at all here in the United States of America. So I much prefer boots on the ground, eyes and ears. Next, where I work, there are railroad tracks less than 50 yards from the back door. And in the last 2 months, there's been an insane amount of Humvees being transported from the Atlanta direction to the Greenville direction. This isn't uncommon for Humvees and tanks to be transported on this line, but the last 2 Humvee trains were at least 3 times the length, loaded down. And as I write this, the train with a brand new looking tank is going by, Usually the tanks and Humvees are mixed on the train. They were separate this time. We've also gotten reports of that coming out of the Beaumont, Texas area, where typically a fair amount of, light-skinned and heavy armor is moved via train in that part of the world. The trains are more frequent and significantly longer as well. What exactly does that mean? I don't know, but it is a data point. Petrol in Australia is $11.50 a gallon and going up. Phil, oh my gosh. I put diesel in my truck a couple days ago for $3.50 a gallon. Now the tank on the truck holds 35 gallons. The transfer tank holds 50 gallons. So 85 gallons at $3.50 a gallon. It's always a significant life event when I pull up to the gas station. But $11.50 a gallon. No. And in the United States of America, listen, I'm not for smog. I'm not for air pollution. I do think there are cleaner yet still efficient ways that we can combust fossil fuels. But dude, North America all the way has the capability to be energy independent on fossil fuels alone for, at a minimum, the next 300 years, not based on current consumption, but increased consumption over the next 300 years. 300 years. That gives us 300 years to figure that out. And for everybody who's worried about global warming, Dan Pena said this years ago, and I thought it was a really good observation. If the water line was actually going up along the coasts, why do people continue to build along the coastlines? And more importantly, why do insurance companies continue to insure construction projects along the coastline? It's all malarkey. It's all bullshit. It's all made up. The coastal baths in Malta, I believe that it is, same exact sea level as they were when they were built 2,500 years ago. They still work. They're not under the sea. The report on Iron Mountain, right? Report from Iron Mountain. Large unattainable goals, including going to space, putting a man on the moon, and global warming. And here we are. Make that 1260 now. Just went up. Phil Walter. No, man, I'm good. I wish y'all everywhere else in the world the best. I honestly do. I don't want that. I'm not interested in that. The United States, man, we have such a blessing in the amount of natural resources we have in this country, and they should be stewarded appropriately. That's part of a man's job biblically, is to steward the resources that we've been given. But remember, the Father, when he made the earth, looked upon it and said, "It is good. It's good. Cool." And if we treat it appropriately, it's good, bro. It's really good. So again, I'm not for pollution, let's use the resources that we have appropriately. And this green revolution that's going on has somehow convinced people that the burning of fossil fuels is worse than open pit mining with children digging for lithium in Africa. Or that, look at the fiberglass wind turbine blades. They can't, like the wind turbine rotor blades, when they're worn out, there's tens of thousands of them that will not decompose for thousands of years, just being buried. We just bury them in the ground. Because that's very environmentally conscious, right? The whole thing's ridiculous. As a dump truck driver operating regularly in and around Indianapolis, I've observed a notable increase in military activity over the past month. In the last 2 weeks alone, I've witnessed 8 military convoys traversing the city, accompanied by several aircraft uncommon to this area. Notably, I've observed fighter jet-style aircraft departing from Indianapolis International Airport, large Chinook helicopters flying at low altitudes near Interstate 465 by the airport, and a group of 6 or more attack-style helicopters moving northwest from the city. Today, on June 27th, I noted 5 distinct military convoys comprising fuel trucks, troop transports, and numerous armored support vehicles proceeded northbound on Interstate 65 towards northern Indiana. Probably doing exercises, bro. Additionally, I've seen individual military vehicles towing trailers and occasionally artillery-style weapons, as well as semi-trucks transporting armored vehicles and tanks, all headed north on I-65. Headed north, huh? Maybe we've just finally had enough with Canada. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what all these troop movements are. They're like, Canada, we're coming for you. Giant landmass. There's only 40 million people there. They don't have a bunch of guns anymore. That's it. We're annexing Canada. That's my informed consensus on what is happening here. The United States has had enough. Biden was drunk on his cocktail of B vitamins that they shoot in his ass cheek every day to keep him awake long enough to stand in front of the camera. And they said, "Sir, we need to go to war." And he said, "I agree." And he tapped his finger down on Canada. And now we're coming for Canada. That's Ontario preparedness and bushcraft. Bring it on, bro. What's up, OPB? That's what I think is happening here. I think the U.S. is preparing to take Canada by force. This morning at 0:30 local time, 6:29, I was at Winco retrieving some items for my wife. An employee came over the intercom and ordered everyone inside to drop what they were doing and evacuate the building, as they had received a mass shooting threat. To their credit, they took action immediately to empty the store of potential casualties. Let this be a reminder to the Bear Nation and to all who listen to always have your chosen long-distance wireless hole puncher on you, as well as your medical. I shudder to think of the carnage had the store not taken the measures it did and the threat was carried out. Eyes up and be alert. May Yah and Yeshua watch over you and yours, as well as all hearing this information. Commentary on this. If you don't have a 100% carry protocol, 100%, I think you need to amend that so that you always have what you may need on you at all times. At all times. The world is too unpredictable and too dangerous to be out there in the wind without your stuff on you. I'm not asking you to be Batman. I'm not asking you to put yourself in precarious situations that you really shouldn't be in. I am saying that going to the grocery store may result in being involved in a mass casualty incident. That's the world we live in now. Possible, maybe even probable to get worse due to our friends who have come across the southern border. And to that point, it is the morning of day 2 of a 4-day weekend denoting America's birthday. While I hope that there is no shenanigans, I'm not holding my breath, but I am paying attention, because if I was a bad guy, this is a great weekend to hurt America, 100%. And we're such a big country that makes it hard to attack us nationally. But it also creates so many opportunities to hurt us locally or regionally, because we're a huge country, just landmass wise. And so you never know if the target's a grocery store. It could be. I mean, literally, this Winco had a threat of a mass shooter. Dude, bro, that's a grocery store. It's not a school. It's not a church. It's not a hospital. It's not a military installation. It's not law enforcement, EMS, or fire. It's a grocery store. Why? Effects on the civilian populace. Bang for your buck. Terrorism typically targets civilians because it's the shock factor that they're after. So if you're a civilian and you carry, you need to have a 100% carry protocol, and you need to be able to hit what you're aiming at. And if you're going to carry things to punch holes in people, you need to carry things to patch holes in people. Indiana constitutional patriots, all families, fingers, and limbs present and accounted for. Bearfack was present but not deployed. Praise the Father. Thank you, ICP. And I'm very, very happy you didn't have to use your first aid kit yesterday. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So just if you bought your Cool Guy double stack 2011 45 ACP slide cut for an RMR and your Serpa Derpa Sherpa class 9 retention leg strap band holster bandolier thing, bro, okay, cool, range day, cool. You're not going to carry that with you to the grocery store. I believe the hood rats like to say you got to keep that thing on you, and it's a phrase you're probably going to hear me saying more and more. You got to keep that thing on you, man. When I'm sleeping, my pistol is actually, the way I sleep, 6 inches from my hand. Actually, I heard so we're in the new house now, praise the Father, and I heard a noise the other night laying in bed that sounded like this. I don't know if you guys can hear this. It sounded like somebody doing something to the Venetian blinds. I was like, ooh, we're up. So I go rolling out of bed, Glock 19X, TLR1HL. And my wife knows the drill, right? So she's up in bed as well. And I cleared the house. There's nobody in the house. Wasn't a poltergeist. What it was the ice maker in the new fridge dropping ice from the ice maker into the ice tray, ice bin in the fridge. A sound which I had never heard in this house before. But my point is stimulus response, reaction time to the stimulus. The response was, and that's in my house laying in bed. Now, my threat profile is a little bit different than yours because I piss a lot of bad people off on the daily doing Caleb House stuff, for which I am completely unapologetic. Don't care. Kiss my ass. We're going to keep rescuing widows and orphans. And if you have a problem with that, you are the problem. But even for y'all going to the grocery store, 100% carry protocol. Just 100, because you never know when you're going to need it. And when you need it is when you don't have it, because Murphy's an asshole. So I think I've beaten that horse to death on this broadcast, but just a way to make holes, a way to plug holes. Okay. And if you're intentionally getting into some shit, a way to stop holes as well. Next, the intel from tonight, last week probably at this point, I can confirm the Hispanics walking around in the grass looking for something. This has been going on now for a couple of years all over the country. There's a lot of them going on public bathrooms at truck stops, Walmarts, Home Depots, etc. Next, was in a hot spot this week to grab a couple of drinks, and a Hispanic guy was in line in front of me with a case of beer. The guy at the register asked for ID, and when handed one, an argument ensued over the language barrier. Turns out the Hispanic had a voter's ID, but no license or passport when asked for. Shortly after, his buddy came in, and he too had a voter ID, but no license or passport. Completely enforces that it's not just a border state issue. It's an everywhere issue, even in South Carolina. Well, that's fun. Yesterday, a German court, approximately county level, had ordered a married couple to hand out all their guns to the feds simply due to their membership in the right conservative party named AFD. The foundation of this decision is, and that the actual news, their plain membership allows for the assumption of not being reliable enough to possess arms. That assumption scam was amended to the German law in 2020 after a highly controversial process. Many lawyers have sent out warnings that this assumption paragraph will be a big nail in the coffin of gun possession in our country. And here we go. So I don't know what y'all did for 4th of July, Independence Day. I'll tell you what I did. We went up to grandma's house. We had a fish fry. We had some fried cod. It was very good. And some hush puppies and some tater tots. And I put a ribeye and a strip steak on the grill, and they were delicious. And I have a bottle of New Riff barrel strength rye, 55%, so 110 proof, that was sent to me by, well, you'll probably never see the bottle. You'll probably never see the inscription that's on it, but suffice it to say, some really cool people who have incredible skill sets who are in deep support of what Caleb House does. What's up, Colonel Lebowski? And so I had some ryes. I had 3 ryes and a steak and a half and some hush puppies and some fish, and I took a hard nap. I was out because I slept like dog shit last night. Not last night, the night before. And when I woke up early evening, we come home, I put on The Patriot, and I watched The Patriot with my 7-year-old daughter. R-rated movie. Yes, there's blood and gore and all of that. She's my daughter, so, blood and gore, not that big of a deal. And the questions that my 7-year-old was asking were amazing. Just amazing. She also has some of the best commentary each week when we do our family Bible study. But I watched The Patriot with my 7-year-old daughter, and I hesitate to even think what I feel the need to say next. This 4th of July, this Independence Day, felt very different for me. It still does. The state that our country is in is so fragile. And at the opening of The Patriot, when Benjamin Martin, Mel Gibson, when the different states, the colonies, they're not even states yet, are talking about Virginia and Massachusetts are at war. And the arguments for and against joining up, I believe he was in the Carolinas, North Carolina. Somebody said, that's not our war. That's a Virginia and Massachusetts issue. And then the counter argument was, well, we have a tyrant that we need to put down, right? We need to unite and we need to fight the king. And Benjamin Martin makes the comment, what use is it to displace one tyrant 3,000 miles away to be replaced by 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? And bro, that hit. Now, I also know Hollywood propaganda, right? This was a movie. I was also deeply aware of, look at the difference between movies from 20 years ago and movies today, right? So even that Overton window has shifted. But I'm concerned about the 3,000 tyrants we have a mile away, that the government that we have now, and we all know this, is in no way indicative, in no way reflects what the founding fathers intended to establish here in the United States of America. And having to figure out how to parse that language in a way that a 7-year-old could understand contextually, it was a challenge. But it's also, if you're ever wondering, like, you got a thing you got to teach, right? Or a presentation you have to give, figure out how to teach it to a child, because it forces you to take very complex issues and boil them down to brass tacks and communicate it in such a way that they can understand at their level with their scope of knowledge. And it just, man, it makes me so proud to be an American. And it also infuriates me how far we have fallen. And being completely honest, I don't see a way out of it. I wish that I did. But the way out of it that I see is let that shit eat itself up from the inside. Let it collapse from its own weight. And there's a lot of people who are saying now and have been saying for years, it's time for us to take up arms against the government. My concern with that, and I'm not advocating for or against that, my concern, right? Like I'm a strategic guy, I'm a logistics guy, I'm a mitigate the risk to get the thing done guy. Just like those British and the colonial regulars were lining up across a field, standing in a line, shooting at each other. We see that today and we think, that's ridiculous. Why would you do that? And then, you get this Benjamin Martin character and his little band of rangers, for lack of a better term, the militia, the irregulars, fighting asymmetrically, doing ambushes and raids and hitting supply lines, and which is what you should do when you're fighting a vastly overpowering, overwhelming force like the British Army. I don't think today the vast majority of civilians that would comprise the militia, the irregulars, are even aware of what the government, forget the DOD, what the government can bring to bear. And it would be akin to standing in the middle of a field lined up with our AR-15s shooting at each other online. And that's my concern, because I think that there's, on the civilian side, way too much bravado with a severe lack of understanding, like a severe lack of understanding. And talk about demoralization. You have the new battle of Lexington and Concord, and 20,000 American patriots go down in a day because of electronic warfare and air superiority. Kiss your movement goodbye. And again, I'm not for or against any of this. I'm standing over here on the sidelines looking, going, I don't think you know the kind of fight that you're talking about picking. And being a man of ideology and principles has its costs, sometimes that are paid for in blood. I get that. I get it. But the average civilian prepper or militia member has no idea. They have no idea. And as of right now, it would be a bloodbath. And why would it be a bloodbath? Nobody's organized, nobody's training, and they are trying to outlaw organizing and training. They're outlawing or have outlawed certain forms of communication. We don't have the logistics backbone. We can't support an army marches on its what? Its stomach. None of us are Monsanto, bro. None of us are General Mills. We don't make enough food on our land to feed ourselves, let alone the militia. Where are you going to get that from? And because it's all been centralized, or 90+% of it's been centralized, that means it's easier to control, easier to target. Right? Logistics wins wars. And I don't see anybody looking at the logistics, looking at the strategy, or if they are, they're not openly discussing it. And that's probably smart, being honest. I see people arguing over tactics. Do we break contact this way or peel that way? What's your SOP for that? Yeah, what's your SOP for crossing a linear danger area? Yep, 100%. You should have that figured out. That only matters if you're performing a mission as part of a course of action that supports a strategic initiative inside of the overall operation. And nobody can even quantify what the overall operation is. It's time for us to stand up. That's the operation. Operation stand up, and everybody stands up, and everybody gets schwacked, and then the government just keeps doing what they're doing. And so my point here is, while I could see the degradation of the United States of America, and it burns my ass to think that we went to war with the king over a small tax, and we give 40, 50, 60, 70% of our revenue today to the federal government, and they have a monopoly on force. All that burns my ass. Before everybody stands up and runs into the maw, probably should have your poop in a group. Understand what the mission is. And nobody can articulate what the mission is right now. And I mean, it's like World War I, where the French believed that the army with the most morale would overcome. And they marched ranks of men into machine gun fire because that's how they do it. And they just chewed up their husbands, their sons, their fathers, because the leadership didn't understand the threat. The Maxim gun will own your shit, especially if you're marching lockstep across a field. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. And I think that disparity in the ability to bring force is not apparent to the air quote patriots today. Yeah, we all have our AR-15s. We all have our line gear. We've all got our Bellevilles and our rucksack. Okay, what are you going to do with it? You see my point? And so it's not that I don't think that something does need to be done. I said, I don't know that we have the horsepower to do anything about it at this point. And that's just the facts. And it's not a lack of belief. It's from soberly looking at the facts and going, I don't think the militia is going to win that one. Which means, what are our options? Let it burn to the ground. Not that I want it to burn to the ground either. And be removed far enough from it that when it bursts into flames, those flames don't catch my stuff on fire too. If that makes sense. Just opining, just thinking. You can agree or disagree. We do not have to be in agreement on this. But I don't want good people to get smoked for no good reason. Because it's easy to talk about revolution. It's way harder to bury your son. And I think that the resolve of our fellow countrymen is squarely in the corner of talk about revolution. I don't believe that the vast majority of people are ready to pay with blood for the revolution that they talk about. And until there's a sober conversation around that, it's all just freaking make-believe in my mind anyway. That's a brief for today. You guys know the links. Caleb House donor matching. We got 5 more days for donor matching. So every dollar counts. If you'd like to support our anti-human trafficking ministry, Caleb with a K, calebhouse.org. Thank you to everybody who has reached out to us. We got one person out there in Australia, Family Trust, I believe it was, donated $25,000. Thank you. You're incredible. A bunch of businesses have sent in checks. Small and medium-sized businesses, SMBs, the backbone of the American economy. Thank you to every one of you guys and girls. Everybody who's logged on to calebhouse.org and used the donation portal from, $1 on up. Thank you. Every little bit helps. Every bit matters. And again, I don't like the fact that we have to do this, but somebody has to do this. And so we're going to rescue these kids. We're going to restore these kids. We're going to make sure that there are meaningful convictions on these bad guys until such a time as the bureaucracy no longer exists and, they can have a bunch of happy accidents. But as of right now, nothing we do is illegal. We actually work with law enforcement to make sure that bad stuff happens to bad people. So calebhouse.org, if the Spirit's moving you. Grindstone Ministries. We got some cool things we're working on with Grindstone. If you've ever been on deployment and you met Kyle is now the executive director of Grindstone. We have some volunteer opportunities coming up for construction. So if you're in construction and you want to come donate some time, come see us, grindstoneministries.com. Links in the description on all this stuff. We're also working on putting some Grindstone classes together. So just like you come to a refuge class to learn the fine art of how to not die, you can come to a Grindstone class to learn how to operate and maintain your chainsaw, or run heavy equipment, or learn your radio stuff, or, all this civilian preparedness, disaster response stuff, search and rescue, all those things. We're working on putting that together, and I think that's going to be super cool. And it also helps from a sustainability standpoint with Grindstone, because Grindstone has done a lot of amazing things. We've deployed 43 or 44 times. I don't remember the exact number, to hurricanes and tornadoes over the last 5-ish years. And when there's a problem, you guys and girls are incredible, because I get on this camera and I say, hey, we're going to go do Grindstone stuff. And then you guys show up and force to pray for us, to deploy, to volunteer with us, to throw a couple bucks in the war chest so that we can afford to go help people who have had their lives destroyed. But in between deployments, the Grindstone gets nothing. We get no traction whatsoever. And so that turns into nail biting while looking at the bank account. So AKA sustainability plan. And so how do we produce a sustainability plan that brings value to y'all? And the answer is, let's teach you and train you how to do all the things that we do when we do Grindstone stuff, which has massive crossover, by the way, into preparedness. Just how to pack a bag that's going to keep you sustained for 7 to 10 days. How to put a sleep kit together when there's no place to sleep, right? Moving about the battle space, how to navigate, how to use your radio, how to use a chainsaw, how to use heavy equipment, basic medical, all that stuff. So Grateful Preps, New Jersey. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you, Grateful Preps. So you can check out grindstoneministries.com. Also, if you need a copy of the Bible, you can get one at our cost there, or we'll send you one for free if you can't afford it. Patreon, link is in the description. And it's the best $10 you can spend on the internet per month. If you sign up for the year, you get 2 months free if you're into that. So that's just something you could check out. And come support me on Patreon for all the things I do on YouTube. No, there's an entirely different and deeper level set of content at Patreon. We go far deeper on Patreon with standalone videos, live streams, etc. And there's a minimum of 3, oftentimes 5 or 6 pieces of content per week on Patreon. And you have access to the backlog of more than 5,000 videos, live streams, write-ups for $10. You should check it out. It's frankly worth way more than $10. And I get patrons that tell me that literally every day on Patreon. Way more than $10. But I want it to have a price that is enough that people will value it, but low enough that people can still attain it. So, links in the description. And I already told you about Refuge Medical. We make the best first aid kits on planet Earth. Just because you're not wearing body armor doesn't mean you don't need a real first aid kit. if you need a real first aid kit, come and see us, refugemedical.com. And if you're with a company, an agency, an organization, a school district, whatever, shoot us an email, sales@refugemedical.com. And here lately, if you go to Refuge Medical and you click on the chat, the live chat on the website, our customer service team is on there 24/6, talking with people. And oftentimes here lately, that has included me, because it's been really good for me to get back in touch with our customers again, see what people actually need, what they're actually interested in, actually helping people. And so I've got to talk to several of y'all in the chat on the website here lately. And so I appreciate all of y'all who support everything that we do. Grindstone, Caleb House, Refuge Medical, Bear Independent. Can't do it without y'all. Now, let's talk to the Father so we can get about our day, because I got to be somewhere shortly. Oh, good morning, Father Yah. Father, thank you for allowing us to wake up. Thank you for the breath in our lungs. Thank you for all the things that we take for granted. Thank you that even though the leadership in this country is just subpar, that we still live in a place where we can openly worship you and fellowship and read your word without threat of being killed for our beliefs yet. And Father, I pray whatever your will is for this nation, that it would be done, and that you would make us strong enough to accept your will, whatever that might be. And Father, if there comes a time where we are truly persecuted for our faith, that we would have the faith to stand, that we would be unshakable in our belief and our love of you, that we would not fear they that can destroy the body, but that we would fear you who can destroy the soul. Father, please harden us. Please make us the men and women we need to be to endure whatever it is that comes. Father, keep our children safe. Please continue to be able to pour into us, that we can forsake not the widow and the orphan, that we can be a refuge for those in need, that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. Father, I want to ask you to pour out your blessing on this land, but I don't believe that we deserve it. And so I pray that you would just continue to wake up your sons and daughters, that you would convict them by the Ruach HaKodesh to turn back to you, to seek your face, to walk in your ways. And I thank you for your mercy, because we should have been destroyed so long ago. You are truly long-suffering. You are truly loving. And we've earned that judgment as individuals and as a nation. And yet you've stayed your hand and seen fit to cover us by the blood of your Son, so that we might come home again. The depths of your grace are unfathomable. And I thank you for it, knowing that we don't deserve it. Father, please continue to guide us. Father, pour out your Spirit on us, those that seek your face for wisdom and discernment. Father, give us your words and let us speak only what you would have us speak, and put us where you need us to be. Arrange us like chess pieces on the board of life, that your will would be done, not ours. Father, give us strength and power and authority In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, to be your hands and feet, to do your will, to physically usher in the kingdom, to serve our fellow man, our brothers and our sisters, to minister to those who are in need. Father Yah, please continue to give us peace. Peace that surpasses all understanding, both in our soul, Father, and physically in our lives. Thank you for staying your hand. And I know that you won't do that forever. And so again, whatever may come, Father, let your will be done. Father Yahuwah, if there is anything within the sound of my voice that is not of you, we come together and rebuke it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Command it to flee. Backstop us with your love. Fill us up, Father. Put a hedge of protection around these people. Father, please protect them, provide for them, and bless them today. In Yeshua's name, Amen. Good morning, Doug Bucher. Shalom, y'all. I will see you when I see you. Have a safe weekend and a blessed day of rest. Shalom.